Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to West Haven City's Planning Commission meeting. Tonight is July 22nd, 2026. The time is 6 o'clock. We are going to start our evening ceremonies with a Pledge of Allegiance from Commission Member Stimpson and a prayer moment of silence from Commission Member Lamar.
Please stand and repeat the pledge with me. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father, as we come before you tonight, we're thankful for the great opportunity we have to live in this country and in this community and have the protectors of our society that we have, all the way from our military to the local folks that do what they do every day, firefighters, policemen, and others. Thank you for the opportunity we have to serve on the Planning Commission. We recognize that with that awesome opportunity also comes tremendous responsibility. We'd ask that you guide us with wisdom, compassion, and respect for all of our community as we carry out those duties tonight. Amen.
Thank you, Commissioners. All right, item number 4 on our agenda, action on the minutes. I know that I gave Emily several corrections, and does anybody else have anything?
Yes, I do. Let me find it real quickly here. Let's see, on paragraph 7, and it says Commission Member Lamar is excused. That should be Commission Member Lamar in the nay column.
I can fix that.
Anybody else? All right, nothing else. I'll entertain a motion.
I motion to approve the meeting minutes from June 24th,
I'll second.
2026. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
I'll second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5, presentation on public hearing for an amendment to the zoning map from A1 to C2 at 2231 West, 1800 South, parcels number 1507-10030, 1507-10069, and 1507-50018. Applicant Dana Jardine, is that correct? Pardon? Jardine, my apologies.
Chair, did we want to do item number 4?
We can come back to it.
Oh.
I mean,
After I read all that? All right, let's go to item number 4, reports.
sorry.
Thanks, Stephen.
So there's just a couple items to report. So we canceled our last meeting, so there's been a couple meetings from council since. So on July 1st, the council met, they did a general plan workshop. Essentially, they covered the recommendations and guidance we presented some of the feedback from the Planning Commission from our workshop in June to the council and worked through, and they had very similar feelings that the Planning Commission had. The biggest item that was discussed during that workshop was mostly the 2550 South area, which was addressed a little bit more in detail with the economic plan. Also at that meeting, they approved the home occupation ordinance. The major change that they did to that, there was a couple little changes, but the big one is they removed auto repair from the code, so that's no longer allowed as a home occupation. And then they also they added like a couple little like clarifying details in there, like what is equipment for equipment rentals. So we defined that a little bit more in the code. So that was approved. They also approved the patio home zone change, or excuse me, the patio home zone update. The couple changes that they made is we removed the multifamily section. They wanted it to be explicit that attached housing wasn't allowed, so we tied that out directly, that attached housing wasn't allowed in the zone. They also added they added back in the bonus room above the garage. And when they requested language, I went back to the last language that the Planning Commission considered and put that in, where we had a limitation on the size of that bonus room and some of those details, and that's what they ended up approving. And so that happened on the 1st, and then on the 15th, the only item that was there was the Economic Development Strategic Plan, and they adopted it as it was recommended, and so including the map that the Planning Commission put in and the additional paragraph. So that was approved with no changes to it. And I think that was it for the updates.
Okay, anybody have any questions? All right, let's go on to item number 5 that I'm not going to read again. Damien, is it you?
I was waiting for you to invite me up here. Okay, so this is a petition to amend the zoning map to change the subject parcels, 3 of them total, from A1 to C2, or from A1 and C2 to C2. Location is approximately 2231 west off of 1800 south, and the total size of all 3 parcels is approximately 20.75 total acres. So the commission, of course, will be making a recommendation on this item, and the council will be taking the final action. So the applicant has provided a concept for development in the form of a written narrative. So we don't necessarily have a site plan, but we do have a map of the potential for the future parcels. So they would be planning a commercial subdivision in which the access will be pulled off of a future road, which is depicted in image 2 on page 2 of the reports that you've been given. So some of the key aspects of that plan, you'll see that the recently developed LWE property it'll be on its own parcel in the northwest corner of the northeast corner of that subdivision. And you'll see there's also a proposed private road off of the future collector road. And that is going to be used as the primary access for those commercial lots. And you'll see also that road that extends on the west side of the proposed subdivision. And that would be an extension of Wilson Lane, and it would go all the way up to connect with 1800 South. And that is already envisioned in the city's general plan. So that is consistent with the city's general plan. Let me just correct myself that there is no proposed subdivision at this time. This is just the rezone petition. So staff's analysis of the proposal is that first and foremost, it isn't consistent with the general plan as it currently exists. The general plan calls out all those properties as being R2 single family residential. R2 zone allows for single family subdivisions, of course, at a max density of 2 units per acre. The general plan, of course, is in the process of being updated, though. And as you know, City Council has just adopted the Economic Development Strategic Plan. And that was done just earlier this month. And the proposal is consistent with the Economic Development Strategic Plan. That's a mouthful, so I will just refer to it as EDSP for the remainder of this presentation. And the EDSP, which there is an excerpt in your report that shows that all three of the parcels that are subject to this rezone petition, they're identified as being part of the 1900 West Key Development Area, which I believe is orange on that map in your report. So the updated general plan should correlate with the economic development strategic plan. And that is again in the works and very close to coming back to the Planning Commission, by the way. So the existing surrounding land uses, staff has found that they're not perfectly compatible with the proposal. There is single-family residential developments to both the north and west. There's not single-family development to the immediate west, but to the immediate west is agriculture, and to the immediate west of that is single-family development. The south is commercial. Across the canal, there is that is the Amalgamated Sugar property. And to the east, of course, is the newly developed commercial, the LWE property. So C2 does offer a wide range of commercial uses, and many of which staff thinks could definitely benefit the surrounding residential and augment the surrounding commercial. But some of which staff doesn't feel is perfectly compatible being exactly or immediately adjacent to single-family residential. And a list of those potential uses that could be problematic is, or detrimental, I should say, that's on page 5 of your report. I would also mention that a lot of those uses are conditional, so they'd come back to the Planning Commission where you could potentially put additional conditions of approval on a lot of those conditional uses in that list. But outright denial of a conditional use permit is difficult. There's a high bar to that, and it's not often met. So again, the general plan does call for that connection road that's depicted on the applicant's site plan. And in fact, that was drawn up by our engineers. We provided it to the applicant. The applicant provided their concept for subdivision back to us. So that is perfectly consistent with our general plan. And that would connect 1800 South, and it'd be another connection out to 1900 West. And that'd be via the extension of Wilson Lane. So this will be just an extension of Wilson Lane, essentially up to the north. That is planned to be a limited access collector road. And what that means is it strives for more of a balance between mobility and site access. So engineering will approve few site accesses off of that road because we're looking for more moderate speeds than what you would see on a local street, and less curb cuts, so less site accesses. But
Damien, do you mind? So the planned speed limit for that road is going to be in the 40 to 50 mile an hour range. And so based off that, there will be a limited access roadway. And so that's in one of the considerations within the report.
You stole my question. I was waiting patiently, but thank you.
now you don't even have to waste your breath, though. So as far as we know, utility connections are all possible, but the And the proposed lots will be serviceable with our utilities. However, our Public Works Director has cited that a sewer connection may prove to be a development challenge for these properties, citing that the properties would likely have to provide a lift or a pump and pump northwards towards 1800 South, where there is a existing sanitary sewer line. So based on the findings discussed and also the findings in your report, staff would recommend that if the Planning Commission is inclined to recommend approval to the City Council, that you do so with those conditions that are listed on the final page of the report. There should be 3 of them. And just for the audience, I will summarize those. So any future, staff recommends the following 3 conditions of approval. Any future commercial development in the subdivision will need to provide a masonry wall or a privacy fence of no less than 5 feet if it's immediately adjacent to single-family residential, and it'll have to be on that shared property line that is shared with the single-family residential. 2, that all refuse or garbage collection points on the commercial sites, as well as any outdoor storage, if any is ever permitted, will be behind the buildings and not visible from the public street. And then lastly, that the subdivision will be limited to a single access point, very similar to how it's depicted in your report.
Thank you, Damien. Does anybody have any questions, comments?
Is there any way of getting a copy of that report? I'd really like to see it.
Which report?
Kind of the plot.
It should be online, isn't it?
Certain roads are-
Yeah, it's online.
Is it?
You can access it online as part of the packet. If you go to agendas and minutes and you pick today's date, there's a packet, and the packet has everything that we're seeing. Okay. Anybody have any questions? Want to go into public hearing? Okay. All right. Thank you, Damien. Well, with that, I'll entertain a motion to enter public hearing.
I make a motion to enter into public hearing.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We are in public hearing. With that in mind, I got to read this. I got lots of things to read. Okay, rules governing public hearings. Each speaker will be limited to a single opportunity to speak and shall direct comments only to the commission. Such opportunity may not exceed 3 minutes, as has been determined by the chair as outlined in Resolution 28-2021. In accordance with Resolution 28-2021, the chair may refuse to recognize or may exclude from public hearing anyone who is abusive or disruptive, takes part in or encourages audience demonstrations such as applause, cheering, display of signs, or other conduct disruptive to the hearing, comments without first receiving recognition from the chair and stating his or her full name and residence, or presents irrelevant, immaterial, or repetitious evidence. Comments and questions raised by speakers will not be addressed or answered by staff or commissioners during the hearing, but will be addressed upon conclusion of and closure of the hearing. Okay? With that, if there's anybody that would like to come up and speak, now's the time to do so.
So,
You
the
got to come up. Hey, we can't hear you. I'm sorry. You'll have to
The
State-
new road that they want to bring
And-
down.
state your name and your address, please.
My name is Beth Dykester, 2297 West, 1800 South, West Haven.
Thank you.
So the new road they want to bring through the field, is that going to take any of the pressure off 1800's traffic?
Okay. We won't answer that right this second, but
Okay, I can answer that after
Okay,
the
all right.
public hearing. Oh, I'll answer that after the public hearing.
yes, that is the way to do it.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Is that, you have any other questions while you're still up?
No.
Okay, thank you.
I got one just to follow that. Her husband Carrie, same address. When we have that question, could you also show us kind of where that road's going to be? Because honestly, it's your guys' land. You can do whatever you want with it. I would just really like to see if we could do something with the 21st Street Road that's going to infringe on our house. And it makes me nervous to have the grandkids out there with, 40, 50 mile an hour roads out there. So that's what I'm really here for.
What-
That's what I'm interested
What was
with.
your address again?
2297 West, 1800 South. So, okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
And Carrie, what was the question about on the road? Just on the side, how big it was dimensionally? What was to be more specific?
I'm really concerned where the roundabout's going to be,
Okay,
how much property they're going to want to take,
okay.
and how close it's going to be to the walking trail and the noise.
And the noise, would that hinder your property if that
Right
roundabout was too
now,
big or too
From what
small?
I've seen, yeah,
Okay,
it'll take a corner of the property away, and
yours,
everything that's happening there, inches
sure.
to make a big difference, especially, with the traffic that it's probably going to encroach on, that
Sure.
area. So that's really what I'm kind of interested in.
That's why we're glad you're here, came and just explain that to us. We're gonna make sure we understand, try to keep everybody's,
Okay.
concerns in, and make sure you get answered for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Carrie.
Anybody else? Anybody online? No? All right. We have received a couple of emails. One is rather lengthy, so we'll just have it attached to the minutes. I will read this other one. Dear City Planning Commission and City Council, my name is Sloan Smith and I reside at 2072 South, 2425 West in the Ivory Homes Fairhaven subdivision. I am writing to formally express my strong opposition to the proposed zoning map amendment to rezone parcels 150710030, 150710069, and 150750018 from A1 to C2. As a recent home buyer who specifically chose to invest in West Haven, I am deeply concerned about the encroachment of commercial zoning into our established residential areas. I have reviewed the applicant's stated purpose for the rezone, and I do not believe their justification warrants disrupting our neighborhood. While the applicant cites the new connecting road from 21st Street to 1800 South and the city's economic development plan as reasons for this change, infrastructure updates should not serve as an automatic green light for more commercial creep into this residential zone. Furthermore, the applicant's intent to build a private road and develop multiple commercial sites directly adjacent to our residential boundaries is highly concerning. Introducing a C2 zone of this scale will inevitably bring increased traffic, noise, and light pollution right to the edge of the Fairhaven subdivision, risking the quiet character of our neighborhood and the value of surrounding properties. This specific proposal is indicative of a much larger issue. For the past decade, West Haven has increasingly prioritized commercial and high-density multifamily developments over traditional neighborhoods. Converting land that is currently zoned A1, which is ideally suited for single-family homes, into commercial space further entrenches a long-term trajectory that many residents feel is moving the city in the wrong direction. If West Haven's goal is to attract young families and encourage them to put down permanent roots, Preserving our single-family residential zones is essential. Continually prioritizing commercial development over the integrity of the traditional neighborhoods works directly against that goal. I respectfully urge the Planning Commission and City Council to deny this rezoning request and protect the borders of our residential neighborhoods. Thank you for your time and service to our community. Sincerely, Sloan Smith. Anybody else want to come up and speak? Last chance. All right. Anybody have anything they want to talk about? Or we can go out of public hearing.
Okay.
All right.
Ready for a motion?
Okay.
Make a motion to leave public hearing.
I'll second.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are out of public hearing.
Emily, would you mind bringing up the packet, page 26, and I can answer the questions real quick, if that's all right with the Planning Commission?
Of course. What image?
We'll just do
Page
page
26.
26 has the full PDF.
Otherwise.
If you want to go to 26, I think it's a little bit bigger and easier to see.
Can I get closer to the monitor? That'd be all right.
Yeah.
That's small.
As long as you don't throw anything at us.
A little bit bigger, so it might be, yep. Yeah, so this image, the actual alignment on this image of the roadway was, as Damien mentioned, produced by the city for, as you can see, the label future acquisition for the roadway. The roadway has not been designed yet. Well, not, we don't have 100% completed construction drawings for the road, but the alignment is pretty settled at this point of where it's going to be. And so I believe the question was, how does this roadway connect in? And I think the image probably does a little bit better job of answering that question than what me explaining it does. But we are connecting into 1800, and the roadway that is directly across, which is the 2350, will tie into the roundabout. As you can see, that there is some plans to do some realignment of that roadway on the north side. And then the road will plan to continue south, kind of on the western boundary of the proposed, on the property that's under consideration for rezone, before it makes a jog back to the east and to connect into the current 21st Street or 2100 South that dead ends direct south and west of this location. There's a lot of reasons why the alignment has kind of been where it was, because I know initially I had asked this week from the Planning Commission that the initial plan was for it to come closer to the LWE building, which is why the building is currently oriented the way it is. Due to a few factors, that has been adjusted to the current proposed alignment. I guess I hope that answers the general question for where that roadway is going to be and its kind of purpose. And really, I guess the other idea, the main reason why the city's doing this is a regional project and is being supported with funds outside just the city. for this construction and design efforts. And it's because the idea is that we want to provide a better connection point between 1800 and 21st Street. As many of you know, if you go down 1800 now, it connects with 1900 West. And then, so if you want to go to I-15 or go into Ogden, you have to make that jog. So the idea is this will provide a direct route where you'll be able to head straight to 21st Street to access either, going into Ogden or 1900 or I-15, or whatever your destination may be, particularly with increased amount of units that are being developed the unincorporated areas west. We anticipate that there will be more traffic.
So my concern is, so my house is the one that's right there on the corner. So when you go down the street, you got the roundabout on the right-hand side.
Could you move over here?
Okay.
It helps the
All
record.
right, it's farther for me to see. So the property we have right now, the house is the one on the roundabout on the Y on the right-hand side. And see how it's going to take off the corner of that property right there, which is where I've got a barn. That's where I've got a shed. Can you imagine trying to back a trailer into the property? And then if they widen the road as well on 1800, if they were talking about doing that as well, I'll have a road probably about 10 feet away from my front door on 1800. And on the left side, I'm going to have a roundabout. So if I go outside, I'm just going to have cars surrounding my house. And grandkids over there, it's just an accident waiting to happen. That's my concern.
So what I would recommend doing, unfortunately, the Planning Commission has the exact alignment and property acquisition isn't within their scope. Normally, that's solved by the City Council. The drawings themselves and recommendations are put together by the city engineer and other staff. So I would recommend that for those concerns about the exact alignment and how it will impact your property, those questions will better be resolved probably first by contacting the city engineer and discussing those with him.
I have talked to him, but it's been probably 6 months to a year.
Yeah, and there's been some
This has moved
changes.
since then too.
Yeah,
so-
there's been some changes in the anticipated alignment since then.
Okay. All right, I'll give him a call and see if we can maybe move, instead of having a curve, we can just go right down that property line and not have that issue. Okay, I'll talk to him. Thanks.
Yep.
I appreciate their patience and
Oh, yeah.
everything
Thanks for
else. So,
listening.
for your understanding too, that's important.
Stephen, is this concept map pretty accurate as far as like the widening of the road and that's?
Yeah, the map that's in front of us, like I said, the alignment itself, like you can see that the Gardner Engineering, like this was the map that we provided to the property owner, and then they put their site plan on top of that map. And so, yes, the map that the alignment has shown is as accurate as to the best of our knowledge at the moment.
What do the various colors on here mean? Because it's not in the,
I just see it.
Yeah, the various colors were put there by the applicant. It looks like they're the different potential commercial properties.
sure, come on up, state your name.
While he's coming up, Stephen, I have a question about how much of the property for the road has actually been acquired, percentage wise? Any of it?
I don't think
Some of
any-
it? Can that be?
answers. That road goes all the way, down, but there's property acquisition discussions with a
In
number of
progress.
different property owners, so I can't really say much more than that right now.
Okay, I guess because could affect, if it moves again, if it's gonna be there.
Really,
I guess we don't know, I'm not asking for specific.
where it's looking, where this alignment is pretty close to
Okay,
that it may shift a little up at the very top, but for the most part, this alignment is looking like where it's going to be.
okay.
Tucker Jardine, 2855 North, 160 East. So I'm the property owner. In reference to the colors, those are literally just delineating the different properties for my purposes when I was trying to lay them out. That's all it is. The light blue one is supposedly going to continue to be a retention pond. But other than that, that's what it is. In respect to property acquisitions, at least on my part, negotiations are happening. There's formal proposals that have been going back and forth. So it is very much in the process.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
and I'm available for any other questions.
Well, while you're here, do you have any concepts at all of what's going to be put and where?
No, our plan is just to make it a commercial subdivision and sell the lots. There's a high potential that we will put some kind of something in one of the lots, but we have not gone down that road where it's premature knowing that there's not even a road to the to the property. So we haven't decided what our final plan is, but subdividing the lots is definitely the overall plan.
So why the rezone at this point? Why now?
Honestly, because the property acquisition is in process, and if we want to, everything ties together. If we're not gonna be able to rezone it, we're gonna think differently about the property acquisition.
Okay. All right, that makes sense. Thank you. Anybody else?
Do you have any other information you want to share with us? Like when you brought this proposal forward, is there anything else that you
No.
haven't told us?
Not necessarily. The reason that the road is on the west side of our property, the original proposal was to take it right down kind of in the middle of where it's kind of hard to explain, further east, more of a straight shot into that roundabout. The reason we want it on the west side of our property is because the city would have had to acquire all of the property to the west of our line because it would make it inaccessible for us. So that's why it was moved to that side of the property. It makes, from a landowner standpoint, it makes a lot more sense to have contiguous land than have it all chopped up. So that's really the only reason it was moved that direction.
Do you own everything in color on this?
The only thing we do not own, there's a triangular piece in pink right at the bottom. That is not ours, but it's also in discussions with the city that essentially becomes garbage property for the city, whereas it could be useful to us. And we're really the only ones that it could be useful to. So we're in negotiations on that at the same time, that if the city acquires it, we would like to acquire it from the city.
I'm trying to place that. Is that the Mitchell's property?
It's actually part of that same property that's directly west of us.
Oh, okay.
So we have an 8-acre piece that kind of cuts out of that larger, I think it's 20-acre piece. And so that triangular piece kind of is in no man's land.
Sorry, I'm going back and forth from Google Maps to that map, just trying to
No, feel free.
place.
Yeah, that little pink triangle, that's actually not part of the application. It's because it's part of a different parcel. But yeah.
Yeah, if we weren't able to acquire that piece of land from the city, we'd obviously redraw or boundary lines between the lots.
The reason I'm asking about plans is because almost 2 years ago, when you guys came with this plan to the Planning Commission, you actually had building plans, layouts, site maps, the whole
Yeah.
thing. So, those are things that I find to be important so that I know exactly what it is I'm looking at.
Yeah, we're gonna be selling the lots, and that's the plan for the lots. I can't determine what the future owner will be using that for. We just would like to sell them as commercial property. Zone C2. And for reference, everything that is in the light green and honestly, everything that is in the light green and the orange and the light blue and most of the pink, everything east of that straight vertical line, that is already zoned halfway C2, halfway A1. And we got I guess we got approval to use that whole property as zone C2. So really the only thing that is changing are the green and the brown piece for the most part. Now, hopefully that makes sense.
Does. No, it does.
So I think just these two pieces.
Anybody have anything else for the applicants?
Can I ask one more question?
Sure, why not?
So the walking trail goes along there. Is the walking trail plan on staying there?
According to the city, they were thinking that the best plan would be to relocate that walking trail to the west side of the road.
Okay, that's kind of what I
Yeah.
thought too. Okay, thanks.
Yep.
That's good.
I'm glad you guys are getting along so well right now.
So just to clarify, a lot of this is already zoned C2.
Correct.
So then just the pieces right along where the proposed road is on that map.
Yeah. Emily, can you
Yeah,
go
the
brown.
pieces that touch the actual road.
That touch the actual road, and then you have your proposed road into your property. So the piece on top and bottom of that road that are touching roads, I guess.
Yes.
Those are not C2.
Correct.
Emily, can you go
everything else
to
is.
page 10 on the packet? There's a map in the report.
Oh, gotcha. This is all R2. I see.
So basically along the canal.
Yeah, that illustrates it.
Yeah, so you can see that pink on there is is C2, while the yellow is A1. So with the property, you can see where the LWE building currently sits. When that came in for approval, it was approved for that property to be developed as a C2 development.
Okay.
And you can actually, most of that A1 property within within that property is already developed. You can see there's a picture of it on page 14 in the packet that shows the LWE building, and that most of that area has already been developed as C2. I heard somebody mention the R2. It does look like on the zoning map that there is R2 as on that very corner, but after consulting with the Gardner Engineering and reviewing that boundary, that actually does not fall on their property. So there's no R2 on that corner. It's all A1 and C2.
But the general map shows all of that area is R2.
Correct.
General plan map, sorry.
Yes, I believe it does. Yep. Yeah, everything on the north side of the slough, which marks that boundary, is R2.
I guess I'm a little hesitant because you don't know what it is you're going to do yet. So I don't know what you're going to do yet either. And in all fairness, I was against the first building, so.
So our purpose, part of the plan commission would be to either recommend to the city council
Correct.
to change it or not.
Yes, to recommend
Recommend change
approval or
to
not
C2.
approving a C2 designation.
Okay.
And they'll make the final decision.
They'll make the final decision.
Yes, they make the call.
Yeah, I don't have any more questions.
Yeah, I don't think I do either.
For Tucker,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tucker.
Right. Anybody else want to speak? Anybody else online? I gotta quit hitting my microphone. All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion to close public hearing.
No, we already closed.
Closed
it.
it.
Did that? All right. Well,
Close it again.
what do you want to talk about?
Close it again.
Close it twice. I'm having a great night so far, so.
My only hesitancy is if that road moves again. Like, I think if we knew that road was there, or if it was already there, those two small pieces that are not C2 already, I don't think makes a huge difference in the scheme of things. But where it's not 100% set in stone with the road, that's my only hesitancy. Is what if it gets pushed further west for some reason, or moves back?
Yeah, I share that concern also, Andrew. I think with the general plan revision upcoming, the EDSP, and how that plays into the general plan revision, my concern is that we may be a little in the potential for the roadway to move a little bit. My concern is that it may be premature to move forward with the rezone for this until we have those other issues nailed down. And it sounds like it's not going to be that long before we're going to have that taken care of. So, you know, I would prefer to table this until that occurs. That'd be my preference.
But from what it seems like is that this may also be, I guess the location of the road may also be determined by the approval of this C2 somewhat.
Right.
As we look at this, I mean, we can come back to the landowner in a minute and ask him his preference of tabling it or going forward with a recommendation for approval or denial. But I do feel like we set a precedent when we were talking about property on 2700 West and maybe it was 3300 South, but kind of like the thought comes to me again, like spot zoning a little bit of approving something on the condition of something else. And I feel like that's just a little bit risky. And I know that you did provide some conditions if we did go forward with it. I'm not comfortable right now going forward with an approval with the information that we have. And that's just where I'm at right now. I would, if that land is acquired and it's there, then then that's what it is and I'm fine to go forward. I just hate to do something on a what if.
And I agree, I'm on the same page with that. I don't mind tabling it. I mean, the applicant probably won't like it, but at least we'll get a better understanding of exactly what's going on with this road and those kind of things. Maybe the acquisition of the property for the applicant may be able to come to light a little bit better during tabling it for a while. But
Do we have an idea how long?
So general plan or, that's a good question. We did get the initial plan was to have it, have the draft done in beginning of September. We had a little bit of a delay because we did some additional workshops to kind of figure out a few things. And so we're probably a few months out. So we're probably looking at this fall that we'll have the applicant actually sent us a draft future land use map just today that they're asking for some red lines on. So we're getting close, but we're still probably a couple months out before it'll come to the planning commission.
Mr. Jardine, do you have a preference of, will you come up? Sorry, Jeff, I should have just left this to you. Is there a preference? I feel like if we go to a vote, it's possible to get a denial. Would you prefer to table that while you look at what's going forward, or is it something that you want to take to the city council regardless of our recommendation?
I'd rather table it if it's gonna be a no, obviously. It's obviously a smart decision, but, can I explain the process of where we're at with that land acquisition first? Literally, I have a real estate agent's offer letter in my inbox. We have responded and they have responded back. I mean, we are in the final stages of negotiation on the land acquisition exactly as it was shown on that. So it's
For the road?
for the road. Yeah, so that road, I wouldn't say that it was not going to happen. It is going to happen, and it's like I have an offer letter in my, I was waiting for this meeting before we proceeded to finalize everything with the city.
Okay.
So it is further down the road than.
I think several of us would like to see that road shift a little bit more to the west, but, you know, we're not engineers.
Yeah.
So I would, as your planning commission is considering what motion, I think I would express a little bit of hesitancy for tabling a zone change for that long. Partly because we've provided some notices to the public, and in the end, it's the council who makes the final decision. And so I guess my recommendation is that tabling, I think a lot of times is appropriate if we can get some answers very quickly. But if, we're talking about 4 or 5 months, at that point, I think it'd be better to, if it ends up being denied, if we change the general plan map to reflect this proposal, at that point, I think it'd be better for just a new hearing and a new application to come in at that point.
I have to agree. I mean, while there's property acquisition, discussions going back and forth, that doesn't mean that it's going to happen, just be done overnight. It's not like in 2 weeks we'll be back and it'll be all decided. It's complicated, and I'm glad that Mr. Jardine thinks that it's close, but there's some serious complications, and it still has to go, the city council still has to approve the ultimate, property acquisition stuff. So I agree with Stephen. If it was just, hey, we need some extra, information that you guys could get by next meeting, I'd say, yeah, table it. But I think that really if, because it's a recommendation from you guys, the real decision-making power is with the council as to how they want to move forward with it. And I'd prefer you make a recommendation. I'm with Stephen. I would prefer you make a recommendation one way or the other, the council over it.
So just for clarification, the way this goes is, I guess, confirmation from everybody. The way this goes is if we recommend denial, it goes to the city council, and the city council can overturn that recommendation and approve it.
Mhm.
Same thing if we recommend approval, it can still go to the city council and they can say no.
Yeah. And they could
So-
table it too. They could say, we want to.
Put it in their hands and take it out of ours.
Right.
And I feel like we all have some hesitancies with it. But
If anybody'd like to make a motion. Thank you.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to recommend denial of the petition to rezone the properties at 2231 West, 1800 South and West Haven, finding the request to rezone the properties from A1 to C2 does not conform with the current general plan and may have conflicts with the surrounding property. In addition, the general plan is currently under consideration, as well as the roadway, and the plan for this area may be updated.
I'll second that recommendation.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
All right, motion passes. Thank you, sir. What do we got up next? All right, consideration of a conditional use permit for 4086 West 4450 South, parcel number 0825-40012. Application for an accessory dwelling unit that is oversized and with reduced setbacks. Applicant Jeanette Aparicio.
Yes,
Oh,
hi,
hi.
how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. I've never done this before, so tell me how it goes. I don't know what to do with it. So. I
State
know
your
you
name and
guys have
address.
questions. My name's Jeanette Aparicio. I live at 4086 West, 4450 South. And we have a barn that we want to convert into that we converted to an ADU or get a conditional use permit for that already. And I don't know, from the pictures, you guys can see all that, everything that you guys have asked for.
Emily, would you mind bringing up the staff report again and we can show some of those pictures? You want to go starting on page 29?
Actually, ma'am, hold a minute. Stephen, would you like to introduce this topic for us?
I can give a introduction to it. So the applicant, as stated, they are seeking a conditional use permit for a larger than 1,200 square feet ADU with reduced setbacks. As the applicant stated, the idea is to convert a barn that's on the property, as you can see in image 2 in the staff report. And the applicant has already done some conversion, as you can see in the following 3 images for what it looks like now. The whole goal of this is to convert it into, convert this barn structure into an accessory dwelling unit. So with the current size, so our code, sorry, I'm jumping back and forth in my notes. So currently the ADU, the West Havens code requires that an ADU above 1,200 square feet would require a CUP from the Planning Commission. The footprint of the structure is 1,142 square feet, but they have a proposed upstairs. So the total living space within the structure is 1,614 square feet. The current structure is also within the setbacks required for a detached ADU, which the applicant can request a CUP for that as well. There is, maybe just to start off with, I think the basic, some of the basic concerns that comes down from the current request is that if you look under 154.474 for the requirements or considerations for an ADU that exceeds 1,200 square feet, is the first thing is to increase the setbacks. And then under but then they're requesting a reduction in setbacks. The other complication to this request is when they have a second story. This is in 157.461 in E. It talks about the second story accessory dwelling units. An accessory dwelling unit located in an accessory structure may only be located on the second story if the structure meets the same minimum setback standards in the zone for height, as well as front, side, and rear setbacks as the primary dwelling. So the so they meet the general side and front setbacks with that approximately, they're set out approximately 37 feet from the east side and 83 feet. Oh, sorry, I had that backwards in my report. I apologize. It's about 83 feet from the east side and 37 feet from the west side. So the side setbacks it complies with. However, the issue is you're at approximately 10 feet from the rear property line. Based on their measurements, they're at 13 feet. So that is one of the first things to consider. Based on the code, a typical ADU would be required to have a rear setback of 20 feet and would be allowed a 15-foot minimum setback if there was no windows. However, since the ADU is 2 stories, the base rear setback requirement would be of the A2 zone, which is 30 feet. So it's well within that setback. There are a few standards that the Planning Commission can consider when reviewing reduced setbacks, including privacy fencing, limitation on windows and doors, and adjacent to abutting property lines. As you can see from the photos, they currently have a post and rail fence along that north border. And I wouldn't, based on, it's adjacent to an offset intersection. And so if there was a requirement to do privacy fencing, we'd want to ensure that it didn't interfere with any site triangles. Because of that offset, it makes the site triangles a little bit weird. But they also have two windows also on that north side. The applicant did provide a statement in regards to this that was included in the report. That, and I quote, based on measurements taken by staff, north end of the barn, ADU maintains a 13-foot clearance from the property line. Furthermore, the windows on this elevation do not face any neighboring residents, ensuring there are no privacy concerns for the surrounding properties. So the overall location of the structure is probably the first concern when reviewing the code and what the code states. One of the second items of concern that is listed is the overall appearance. So what the code states that accessory dwelling unit in an accessory structure shall be designed so that in the degree reasonably feasible, the appearance of the building is compatible with the architectural components of the primary dwelling unit. For example, exterior materials, color, and roof pitch, and that's in 157.462. Emily, if you want to go to page 32 in the report itself, that shows a picture of the existing home. So the applicant is, the previous barn has metal siding, and the applicant is proposing to keep the metal siding. Based on the code, a detached ADU must, to a degree reasonably feasible, match and be comparable to the architectural components of the primary dwelling. As you can see, that's a picture of the current dwelling. The current home is comprised of white siding and brick. The proposed ADU does not, in staff's opinion, does not match the exterior materials or colors. And based on these standards, staff finds that the proposed ADU is not compatible with the existing family home. The applicant did respond to this concern that staff raised during our review, and I quote, "The structure currently features gray metal siding, which we intend to retain in its current state. The siding was a pre-existing high-value upgrade at the time of purchase. We may consider painting the exterior white in the future. We are requesting approval for the current finish to remain as is." So those are some of the bigger concerns. One of the other items that we've worked with the property owner to review is, if you want to jump down to page 34, and then we'll look at 35, is parking. So based on the standard, an ADU is supposed to provide adequate parking, and there's some certain setbacks for that. Namely, no parking space may be located within the front or side yard setback adjacent to the street, except within an approved driveway. And the minimum width of the parking areas and driveways shall be paved with concrete or asphalt. And so if you want to jump down to the next page 9, you can see this was a little bit of a weird, the historic access for the ADU just kind of came out right at the intersection. And as mentioned, the intersection is offset. There is a dirt road that is directly across. That's actually a city road and a public road. And so when we were looking at this, what we wanted to ensure is that the driveway was offset at least 25 feet from the intersection to avoid conflicts with how that intersection might flow. And so based on that, we came up with this, working with the applicant, we came up with a potential parking plan where they could park. So you can see there's a little yellow line where they would drive. The plan is to park the vehicle behind under that carport that's in the photo. And that would be the drive path. You can actually see there is a car. When I went and took the picture, there was a car currently parked in that area. So the idea is that they would have to do some sort of barrier, likely a post and rail fence would be the recommendation, not to interfere with site triangles, but some sort of barrier to limit access from the intersection based on how its historic access, its function. And after review with engineering and public works about the access, they believe that this would meet our standards. So the last item, so there are a few other items with the code as far as how much space the building takes up and percentage of, or, size, and the lot is fairly large, and so it meets those standards. The last item of concern that I wanted to raise is that our code under 157-469 states that all construction and remodeling shall comply with building codes and ordinance requirements in effect at the time of construction or remodeling in accordance with Utah State Code, and a certificate of occupancy must be obtained for an ADU before it can be occupied. And so as the applicant stated, most of this work has taken place prior to receiving any type of building permit or inspection. They have submitted engineered plans and drawings, which the building official did a review, as you can see within the report, and found the primary issue that he found was that the windows on the, I believe it was the south side, did not meet our code, and those would have to be larger. And then he left a note that they would have to do inspections on everything, which could involve removal of drywall and other things that have been put in order to ensure that the building actually meets the construction or the design or the engineered plans that have been provided. I talked to the building official. He believes that is a possible and that's a feasible option, though obviously at this point we have not gotten through that process, partly due because of some of the other issues that are still remaining, and wanted to ensure that, or before we went down that road, that whether or not those other issues are even viable to be resolved at this point. So to kind of summarize, I did put down a few items of consideration that I felt like should kind of guide the conversation. The construction without a building permit, the outside of the building metal siding, the parking, and then I think probably the biggest issue and the issue that can't be changed based on where the building currently sits is the increased setbacks that would typically be required with a larger ADU and a second story building. So at this time, I would not recommend approval based on these remaining issues. And I feel like one of the reasons this is being brought before the Planning Commission is I feel like they've addressed everything that I, as the Community Development Director, can work out with them. And so I'd recommend that the Planning Commission discuss these items with the applicant. And then the either two possible motions that I see is potentially if the Planning Commission sees that the applicant can meet some of the conditions to approve a CUP, tabling the item to allow them time to address those. However, as mentioned in the report, I believe there are sufficient inadequacies that the Planning Commission could deny the application as it currently stands. Are there any questions for staff?
So I got a quick question. So a building permit to improve the interior of the building was not issued.
Correct.
So they still need a building permit?
Yeah, they would have to file for a building permit, and then, which they have filed the plans, and our building official has reviewed those, but we have not issued a permit. There were some notes as mentioned in the report. And then in order to satisfy the code, he would have to go in and inspect the structure, which could involve removing some drywall or other items to ensure that it complies with the engineered plans before occupancy could be granted. Like I said, with my discussion with the building official last week, and as we've met to review this, he believes that is feasible. However, once again, hasn't received a building permit and they haven't done any inspections. I believe he's seen I think he went in, right? Yeah, he came over and looked at it.
Pictures of the before as well. And then the two windows that you guys recommended that needed to be bigger, those have been updated to the sizes that you guys have requested already.
Okay.
So that's already been done. And then on those north side windows where you guys were talking about, how we talked about, there's no homes there or anything like that. So it's not invading anybody else's privacy or anything like that, or on the east side, either with the windows on that side as well, because it's so far from the homes, it's so far out, and the other homes are further south. And so sits on the corner away from everybody. It's not disturbing anybody's privacy or anything like that. And the school's right across the street as well. And so the windows are higher too. And so I technically can't see out the windows because I'm so short. But yeah, so we've done already upgrades on the changes that you guys have requested on that. In regards to the parking would be in the back. They don't enter at all through that where it would block the street or anything like that. Really, the only time there's any issue is during school hours, where that's the crossing walk lady will sometimes park her car right there. But she does that for the kids' purposes, I guess, to park right there. But other than that, our vehicle would never block any of that. It's only during the school hours when the crossing walk lady would do that. And then other than that, I think we've kind of met everything else. We've done the engineering plans. We submitted all those. Those have all been submitted. They've been stamped and everything as well. The engineers came out, the West Haven person, Dan and Ed, have come out to take a look at it, and they've seen the inside as well, and they liked it. So I don't know what else.
So was a building permit issued for the initial structure, and how long has it been in place?
I actually don't know the answer to that question. I know the building has been there for a long time.
We moved in 2017, and so that building's been there way before us.
But it's not grandfathered in for this use.
Correct.
It was a totally different use, and by turning it into, trying to turn it into someplace somebody's going to live, that's where the problems start.
Who did the construction?
We had family members that did it, that work in construction. Did it.
I'm sorry, could you?
Family members that work.
Family members. Are they licensed contractors?
They're not licensed, but they've done it, but they've done it up to code, and we work with people that are up to code with that know exactly how to build buildings and what needs to go in there. Like I said, we have pictures that they also have, and I don't know if the engineer included those with the engineering plans of like what it looked like before as the wood pieces and everything was going up. I'm not using the correct verbiage because I don't know the correct verbiage, 2x4s, whatever they're called, all that kind of stuff, but there's pictures of all that they have as well that are with engineer plans.
So you had these plans engineered, those were, that's expensive. I understand that. Did they not tell you that you needed to have a licensed contractor and you needed building permits?
This was after the fact that we got the engineering plans.
Who told you that after the fact?
Because we didn't,
Oh,
have-
okay.
yeah, the city said we needed to have an engineer come out and get the engineer plans to come out and get all those for us.
How did this come to our attention, Stephen?
I believe it was discovered by our code enforcement and building official. They saw the change of the structure, and I believe at that time they approached the resident about the change.
What's behind the big metal door,
What's behind the big metal?
the sliding barn door?
That's now a house. So now that's like where there's a bathroom, there's let me see, a laundry room, and then like where the water heater and all that's at. So
I guess my question is more about, does that sliding door still slide?
no,
Okay.
no. That's just on the outside, it looks like a barn, but you go inside, does not look like a barn. It's pretty dang nice inside. So we just kept that door there to not take it, but that's completely sealed off, closed off on the inside. I don't know if you guys have pictures of the engineering plans, because you could see all that in the engineering plans where it shows where all that has been built out.
So when you said the family members did the building, does that include the structure itself, or was that building existing on?
All that was existing already. that whole building was already existing. It was a barn.
You talk about your family members doing the construction
Inside.
at the interior,
Inside.
but the steel building itself existed before you purchased the property.
Correct.
Yeah, it's been there a long
It's been
time.
horses when I first moved here, it had horses in it and all around that, so.
Yeah. And we used it for a while as, well, for a long time for our barn, for our horses as well. And then economy's crazy. And so you got to help your kids out a little bit. And so,
Sure.
yeah,
Did it have a bathroom in it when you first bought the
it
property?
didn't, but it had the plumbing already and everything set up already for it.
How did you connect to the sewer?
It was already connected to it.
It was roughed.
Yeah. it was
Had
already-
electrical, does it have enough electrical for the?
Yes.
Okay.
So technically, everything was already there. We just fixed the inside
Right.
to look like a home. Is what it
But I
looked
think it
like.
was set up for a bathroom and like an office type thing, if I remember right, but.
This is a bit of a struggle for you guys because
This and stuff.
I mean, it doesn't comply with any of our, any of the ADU code, doesn't comply with the setbacks, doesn't comply with the size, doesn't comply with the materials on the outside. It doesn't, there's some of the stuff that, yeah, you can work through, like the fencing can be changed, but again, you have to deal with
Mhm.
that the fencing, you only get a certain amount of privacy fence, is it 42 inches that it can be go up because of how close it is to the
Corner.
corridor. I mean, it really depends on how you want to go. If you wanted to table it and see about trying to get some of these things dealt with, like the exterior stuff and the fencing stuff, and whether or not that's going to be enough for you guys to say, okay, to like being okay with the setback issue.
Is the fencing that's there in these photos, is that not adequate for it? Does it have to be privacy fencing?
Code says privacy.
And it has to be a certain height?
Well, because it's so close to it doesn't have a height. It just says privacy. And it can only be 42 inches because of how close it is to
They
the,
could do like a pony fence,
what was that?
like a slatted pony fence or something like that? Like a
Mm.
shorter fence?
I think code says opaque, right?
Yeah,
That's
this
good.
says privacy fencing, and limitation on windows and doors adjacent to abutting property lines. And the other one, that's for reduced setbacks for the increased size. It says increased setbacks, privacy fencing, limitation on windows and doors, adjacent to abutting property lines.
Can I ask on your recommendations, it says the applicant's able to provide proper mitigation for the increased size and location? Can
Mhm.
you,
So the standard within state code is that they have to, we can set condition, if we have a conditional use permit, that we can provide standards for proper mitigation of those. And typically we look at our code and its recommendations for what those mitigations are. So essentially our code views that increased size or reduced setbacks has a certain impact. And then we have the standards of, the privacy fence or for increased size, you have increased setbacks, privacy fencing, limitation on windows and doors, adjacent to abutting property lines, and additional parking as possible conditions to mitigate those impacts. And then the same for the reduced setbacks. And so I think my concern with this is kind of the dual nature of the increased size and the reduced setbacks, where the code is set up in a way that states that for the increase of size of structure, you typically would increase the setbacks to reduce that impact.
We're already.
Yep, we're already, but they're requesting both of those.
Yeah, and there's also the 400 extra square feet. So 1/3 again, the size of our code.
The sides, though, I mean, I know that's the inside of the sides. It's not anything that was added after the fact. The size is just the upstairs piece that is what is creating that 1,600 square feet now. And then in regards to the privacy fence, could we just do like not a tarp, but like a, what is it called? Because we have that on our other fence where we're kind of covered on the side. My concern about that is because why would it need a privacy fence on that side? If the other houses that are back there don't have it, is it because we're making it an ADU? Is that why it would need that privacy fence in regards to them? Like, I mean, that's not an issue. We could totally do that, but I guess that's my question, because all the other fences back there have no privacy. There's only one house on that street that has the white vinyl fencing back there, and the rest of them you can see in everybody's backyard back there completely. So.
So my question was what's holding it back from getting a permit?
Yeah.
Us? Is that what's holding back from getting a permit?
Getting the building permit?
Yeah.
Well, they have to actually apply for the building
Oh,
permit.
they have not applied.
They've brought in engineered plans, but they haven't actually applied for the
Oh.
building permit and gone through and gotten all of the inspections done.
Okay.
So
For the horse there.
they haven't done that. They haven't provided a building, a site plan at all. I mean, that's the thing is there's all this stuff that's gone.
I have applied for the permit. I've done all that after, as soon as you guys sent me the information that we hadn't followed the right process. The second that you guys said that to me, I followed all the instructions as followed.
Yeah, I believe she is correct that we do have a building permit application. So we haven't, we've been in the process of discussing those, which is one reason why we have the review. So typically with an ADU CUP, the typical process is they get the ADU permit and the CUP and then apply for the building permit. Okay. Because essentially this is the bigger approval. And if this approval can't go through, then we want to issue a building permit for something that hasn't got the land use sorted out. And so that's why this is going first and why we haven't gone through the building permit.
Because it doesn't meet a lot of things and we need approval from us.
Yeah, because we wouldn't want to charge her for the building permit to go through, do the inspections, have her do the improvements
Gotcha.
without, and then have it come back just, and doesn't meet the land use code.
But it doesn't.
So my concern with regard to the building permit is if we don't even know that a building permit was issued for the initial structure, we don't know that that initial structure supports IBC 2021, let alone IBC 2024, which is going to take effect July 30th. So how can we then go and say, yeah, we don't even know if the external structure meets our building code to withstand the wind load, the snow load, et cetera, required to meet the IBC standard. We don't even know if that external structure meets that, but we're going to go issue a building permit for the internal structure, which the plumbing and electrical can't be inspected unless the drywall is pulled out so that it can be properly inspected to ensure that it does meet code. Something as simple as the electrical wiring needs to be stapled off, I think 6 inches from the outlet box. That's a code requirement. And that's for every electrical box in that building. Something as simple as that,
Again, those pictures were submitted with the engineer, and the engineer, I thought that's what the purpose of the engineer was, to come in and say that it was structurally safe. And they've stamped and sealed all that.
So the stamped drawings are for the structure.
Correct.
How did the engineer determine what the structure was engineering wise when the interior is installed and he can't even see it?
We've given them pictures of what it looked like as it was getting built, so they could see what it was looking like prior to it being with the sheetrock and all of that. So they have pictures. So I don't know if they've submitted those with the engineering plans that got turned in. No, we've submitted them and we've given them pictures of that as well.
But a picture doesn't tell you the structural strength of the steel members. there's 30 PSI still, there's 45,000 PSI still. And how do we go back and ensure that this structure does meet the code? So a picture doesn't define the strength of the structural members used to
don't-
construct the
Do we
building.
do that ever though, George? Like, I don't.
Oh, yeah, I mean, those are all really good questions. And so, building permits and then occupancy falls under the building officials umbrella. Yes, it's his authority to issue those and then to issue occupancy. He has raised a lot of the same concerns that you're raising and has had conversations with the applicant and I also believe the engineer. And I unfortunately I can't really speak on his behalf other than he felt like after those discussions and reviewing the plans, he felt like though there would likely have to be removal of some drywall and some other items, he did feel like it was feasible to get to that point to issue occupancy, though I'm
That's
not
it,
an
we
expert.
need to-
I'm not an expert in that.
Okay. Thank you.
So even if we issue a conditional use permit, they still need to do all their inspections.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the conditional use permit won't exempt them. Within the ADU code itself, it states that it has to comply with the building code and that it has to receive a certificate of occupancy, and there's no way to avoid that within our standards. So even if the CUP was granted and then down the road, our building official determines that occupancy can't be given, they wouldn't be able to occupy it as an ADU.
That's the tough one.
This is hard. Stephen, the question I have for the setbacks, so if you allow this to be approved, is that forever we can allow those distances, those setbacks to,
It sets a precedence.
right? But it's tough.
But it doesn't set us with legal precedent, right? Like,
What was that?
it doesn't bind us to have to do this, whatever conditions we set, if we approve it this way, it doesn't bind us for future
Not really, as long as you have good
reasons.
findings as to why you're doing it. I mean, this one's really hard because this building was placed there not as a residence. It really, the setbacks are, so you're gonna have to figure out if you want to, like I said, Stephen had the possible motion about tabling is whether or not if they do everything else, they fix the exterior, they deal with the window issue, they deal with the privacy fencing. If they, all of the other things that, and they deal with all of those other things and whether or not you can live with having it set back where it is instead of where it's required to be. I mean, I think that might be your only way, only good way to proceed is if they take care of everything else and that's the only issue left and is where it's sitting, that setback. And if you can be okay with it, I mean,
So how would we get over the privacy fence thing?
well, I mean, all it says is it has to be, it doesn't say the height. Having a 42-inch privacy fence, like vinyl fence.
Holding wall.
Yeah.
We can also work with the applicant to see where that was, because like I said, I had some concerns potentially about site triangles, because how the intersection offset.
Yeah.
But we could calculate that and kind of draw where that would be. And so you do a privacy fence up to that point too.
I
Yeah.
think sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think that the location too is what is kind of pushing me to table it and give them options because it is across from the elementary school. That is like, it's not sitting in the middle of a neighborhood, if that makes
Right.
sense.
It's
And
on
so it's in a, I mean, there's a lot of problems with it, but it is in a location that, you know, it's not,
It's doable.
it's doable, but I guess, you know, that offset intersection is kind of difficult. But if there's a way to figure that out.
Yeah. No, you're okay. I was just gonna say, I think the size thing is hard, adding 600 square feet. I don't know. To me, like, they didn't change the structure. It's always been that height. It's always been that size. They didn't add more footprint to it. So from that point, like, do you really, like, what difference or detriment does that play in adding 600 square feet to a structure just because you
You
know,
live
added
within
a
the
loft, say, right? And then secondly, with the, you know, access and the parking, I mean, is a sedan less less of a traffic issue than like a big 2-ton or full size diesel in a trailer, like, you know, for what it was used for as a barn and trailer horse or whatever else or toy you're gonna put in there, like, what's less of a detriment as far as traffic goes? I think a sedan is definitely less of a worry than someone pulling out there with a trailer, trying to pull out and around that corner and, you know, impede traffic and all that. So to those two issues, I mean, I'd be inclined to grant those requests or whatever we're calling them, variances or
Pardon?
other things, huh?
The pardon?
Yeah, the pardon of those two things.
Table it, would they still go forward and be trying to get that permit then, or would that?
If the planning commission would tables it, I would recommend that you provide within that motion items that need to be addressed with the application. And then that would give the applicant a chance to address those items within the application itself. I would not advise them to like let's say you say we need to do privacy fencing. I wouldn't advise them to go put the privacy fencing in before, but to make the adjustments to the plans and bring that back. And then at that point, the commission can consider whether or not that adequately mitigates the impact.
And that would be the same thing like with the exterior, the
Yeah.
architect, so that it matches.
And inspections too.
you know,
The exterior
Andrew's
dimension.
point of the height of the building and the structure, as Amy pointed out earlier, that the use of the structure has changed. And so they could still build a building the same height and place it where it's placed if it were not used for an ADU, if it were an outbuilding. So now that the use of the building has changed, then we need to look at the ADU requirements, not the barn requirements with regard to setbacks and whatnot. I think it changes because the use has changed. The other aspects of this has changed as well. And I think we need to take that in consideration. And I'll tell you why I feel strongly about that. We have one of the members in our community, and when we go through and make these decisions, you know, we need to take into account the community, the neighbors, and the property owner themselves. That's bound in legal determination that all of those have property rights. We, the city, and we're all the city, required a gentleman that I know that was building an ADU. It was 2 inches too close to the property line. The city inspector showed up. He had the foundation forms in place, the cement truck on the way. The city inspector showed up with his tape measure. The foundation was 2 inches too close to the property line. He had to scurry, put the cement truck on hold, remove the foundation forms or have them removed, have the rebar bent 2 inches so that it would move the foundation 2 inches from the property line, all before the cement truck got there. And so I think, how am I going to face that guy when I run into him on the street? And we made him jump through all these hoops to move his foundation 2 inches. And we make exceptions that are significantly greater than that, and how do we in the future not say or not change the ordinance to say, hey, if you're building next to a school or next to a roadway or an unutilized area that in order to be fair to you guys in the future, since we're allowing this, go ahead and move your ADU closer to the property line. And for me, it's an issue of fairness and not just to the property owner, but to people who've already built an ADU and complied with our requirements, and people in the future that will build an ADU and will also comply with our requirements. So, for me, there's a tremendous number of discrepancies that, need to be rectified. And so for me, I'm really hesitant to move forward with this.
I was thinking through this. They've done it after the fact, but if they'd have came to us when that was just a barn, and so they wanted to turn it into an ADU, how would we have changed? Would we have allowed them to do that at that time?
No,
We'd say no.
the exterior is all wrong. The window size is all wrong.
But would we have given
And
them
it's too
the,
close.
That's too
We would
close
have
to the
told them
roadway.
no if they'd come in and,
There's just too
beforehand.
many issues that,
Those are easy.
at least for
to
me.
fix. So, like, the windows are fixed already. I mean, everything that you guys have asked for us to
Sure.
fix, we've pretty much fixed. We're not impeding on anybody else's property.
yeah,
We're not bothering anybody else. It's on the corner. I don't think the city has gotten complaints about them being affected, noise ordinance, anything like that. There hasn't been any issues with any of that. And so for us, nothing has changed except that now cars park in the back, which, like he said, what's the difference now? A Honda Accord or something's parked back there instead of a big old trailer.
sure.
Competing right there, or horses. We do have horses, but before we had the horses right there that were more noisy to neighbors and everything like that,
Sure.
impeding to them. It hasn't changed anything. The exterior part, I mean, that's an easy fix. If that's, you guys want us to paint it and you guys give us time to paint it white, like, we can totally do that. That's fine. With the way how costly things are, as long as you guys give us time and work with us, we're willing to do that. But everything else, like everything, it's been there already. It hasn't affected anybody. It's not affecting anybody else's property. Everything is on my property. We haven't added extra, moved out, nothing like that. We did the window changes, the windows that are on the north side. It's not impeding on anybody's privacy or anything like that. So again, nothing has changed technically, like you said. Everything has stayed the same. It's almost for the better because we don't have horse trailers back there. I don't have a boat back there. I don't have anything huge that's blocking and making it hard for people that are driving right there in the street to block. There's no cars blocking the front ever. No one ever parks there. So in my mind, it's almost just, I mean, yes, we're doing it backwards. We've done it backwards, but we're following all the requests now at this point. And we're willing to fix everything as long as you guys give us that permission to do that. And we are good citizens. We've been there for 9 years now. We've never caused a problem in that area. We get along with all our neighbors. I know that was one of the issues that they said, if you ever were to sell your home or anything like that, that is not our plan. This is our forever and all home. Like, this is our final home. That's for my children to live in there, if that's possible. The way the economy is right now, it's so expensive. They can't afford a house right now. Like, we're just trying to help our family be on their own, kind of, as well. And so I mean, I don't know what else to say. Like, it hasn't changed anything else. If you guys want us to change the color, we can totally do that. Just work with us, give us time. We've already done the window. everything else. We've done the engineering plans. Yes, that was costly, but we were willing to work with you guys. We're willing to do
Yeah.
as asked, as you guys had asked of us.
If we make a motion to table, there's, just so that you're aware, there's no guarantee that you do that and come back and it would pass, you know, so that's one of the options that we have, that if we decide to table it right now, we can give you some recommendations, but when you come back, it's not, you know, it's not a promise, like if you do this, then we will pass this and that. So that's a little bit, but again, that would be recommendations to bring back a site plan with those upgraded things that we needed, right? That we would ask for, and then come back to us again, which I think would be maybe your best bet right now, because I just, as is, the feeling that I get from the commission right now is it would just be denied as is. If we were to talk about it right now and take a vote right now, that is my guess. I don't know that. And it's still possible that it may be denied if we ask you to go do that updated site plan, which we need anyways, right? That is something that needs to be turned into us. But just so that you're aware of that. But if we do table, there would be some recommendations. Thoughts on that, Stephen?
I guess, what's the hesitancy in
Yeah.
approving it?
It doesn't
My
meet any of the
question. I know, like I
requirements.
said, we did it kind of backwards.
Right.
right?
Hang on a
But-
second.
And I know that,
But hang on a second.
Go
He
ahead.
had a question for Steven, so let him do that.
So maybe let me just make sure I understand. So essentially, the question is, if you table it, provide some guidance, and they bring it back, you could still deny it. Essentially, as of right now, we don't have an application that might meet all that, and we can't render a review of what a future application would be. And so any guidance given, anything like that, that doesn't obligate the planning commission for future approval.
Okay.
Okay. You were saying something. So could you
Well,
move the
the
microphone?
brain kind
Move the
of-
microphone closer to you.
Yeah, but
just it kind of left my brain out at this point. So my point is just like, I guess, what is the biggest hesitancy of approving it? If that's already been there this whole time, I know it wasn't used for that purpose. It's not, like I said, we followed now the codes that you guys have wanted. We had the engineer come out. We're willing to make the adjustments. We've made the adjustments already prior to the windows and everything have been adjusted already. The privacy fence, that's an easy fix. But it hasn't it's not like I said again, and I sound like I'm repeating myself. It's not impeding on anybody else's property. No one else has complained that I've heard of. I know that other homes in West Haven have ADUs like that are in their property line as well. Those are just fenced in and you can't really see them. I guess my bad thing is we're just on the corner and you can see us because we're on the corner right there.
I think for me, structurally, it's a metal building. It can't be a metal building and work. It's got to be out of materials that are like your house. That's one part of it. We don't know what anybody did to build it. So they're going to have to tear out some walls to find out whether or not there's fire blocks in the walls, whether or not the plumbing was done correctly, the wiring. That's dangerous. You've got incorrectly sized windows. There's just a lot of stuff going on that is more than where it sits on the roadway and bothering neighbors. There's just a whole lot of stuff there.
We did work again with someone that knows all the coding standards and all that.
Then he would have known to get a building permit. I'm sorry about that.
And ask
It's-
for forgiveness then, I guess, because
yeah.
it is my home. Like I said, we're just trying to help our children out is what we're trying to do.
No, I understand and I appreciate
We
that.
own that home, we own that home.
Okay.
And so
I think
Then
the reason that you're standing here is it doesn't meet any of the requirements for an ADU. That's why.
right.
So that's why it can't go forward, is it doesn't meet any of our requirements at this point in time. It's too big, it's too close to the road, like there wasn't a building permit, like all of these things, like you've bypassed all of these major steps to get an ADU. And so we're trying to find a way possibly for a conditional use permit. Where you're at right now, it isn't enough to grant that, I'm guessing by where we're sitting at right now. But there are some things, some mitigating factors that Stephen had mentioned that are possible if you bring back another site plan with the privacy fencing, with the parking change, with the windows change, which it sounds like you've already changed. Like these things that we're asking are going to mitigate that impact because it doesn't comply with the code for West Haven. That's the bottom line, is it just doesn't comply with any of the codes right now. And so that's why there's some heartburn here, is that we're trying to look at it and give you a way forward, and hopefully we can find a way forward. But
That's my
right now,
hope.
it just is stopped in its tracks right now where it's at, because there's so many things that it doesn't comply with that we could maybe we can adjust the size. Well, the size is already there. Maybe we can adjust the setbacks. It's already too close to the road. So that's the discussion. It's not that it was already there, like it was already there for a barn, but it wasn't already there and to comply with the zoning codes for West Haven right now, it just doesn't. And so looking at the things that are possible to do, and this is not from the commission, this is from Commission Member Stimpson, right? I would say that if we table it, I would look at the updated site plan with all of those things done. And speaking with the engineer in the city on the fencing, does it need the privacy fencing all the way down because of the adjusted site? Like, can it get through there? The exterior should match the house. The privacy fencing, what am I missing off of there? I'm missing something out. There was another recommendation that I'm missing.
Like windows on the north side of the building was one of the items. So essentially the mitigations or the items that can be provided, excuse me.
And then at that point, then you still have to go through all of the permits and the inspection and everything and make sure that the building is compliant and the structure is compliant. So we're a little bit, I know the cart's before the horse, but we had to get here so that you could see if there was a possible way forward. That's how I feel, just me. I think with those things, if those things all met that, I would be willing to go forward with it. If they all met it and the engineer was okay with it and the city
And all those plans. Yeah.
could meet with that. That's just me.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like you mentioned earlier, Ms. Stimpson, my questions about building permits and that kind of thing are really not in the purview of this body. But since we're out of sync with the process, it made me wonder about, where are we at with that? Are we really doing this thing the way that it should be done, going backwards? And it's really tough to do. And so I think you nailed it when you said, regardless of all that, let's not even consider that. We need to be in compliance with our ADU ordinance. And as I was saying earlier, to be fair to everybody that builds a detached ADU within our city, those that have already built them and those that'll build them in the future. And so I think,
And we're not
this is
addressing,
so far out of the range of compliance with it. We need to get back in at least a lot closer than we currently are.
What else do you need from us, Stephen?
Just
And a recommendation?
Recommendation?
Yeah, motion.
Make a motion.
Motion. Table it.
Long motion.
I think it's,
You got it, Andrew?
well, I'm just gonna motion to table it and give them another chance to see if they can work through some of these things.
And you have a list of everything? Did we add anything to the
Would it
list?
be okay to do a motion to table and work it
Work
out
with staff.
you and Damien?
Yeah, we can do that.
If somebody
Um,
wants to do that.
I like that.
I can do that. I just said, I guess, a couple more things to consider for the applicant. I mean, I know these things cost money, but if there's any way, like the setbacks are a big one. I know it's only 13 feet from your fence line, from your property line. I think technically, and they can correct me on this if I'm wrong, I just work it out. I guess you could work it out with staff, but I mean, you've already built the inside, it costs money to tear things down, but could the setback be like, if they had left part of that a barn, like let's say they left it for 15 feet, like the actual living space was 30 feet from the fence and the rest of it stayed as like a barn or a, you know, or does it have to be the structure?
Yeah, so the code, I believe the code states, it specifically references the structure itself. Yeah.
So was the.
And
the
so
same-
even if they were to leave like part of it as a barn or whatever and added an ADU to the side, I would, off the cuff, my interpretation would be that the full structure would have to
The
comply.
whole thing, that's kind of what I'm thinking. It's.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, there was that overhang that had the horse,
Yeah.
the photograph of the horse
Yeah.
trailer. And
Okay. So that might not be an option.
Yeah,
That
I'm
option,
not
but
sure
you know,
either.
if you don't,
I don't think that there really is any way to fix
To-
the setback issue other than tearing the building
then
down.
tearing the building down
I
or
mean,
moving it or
unless
doing something.
there's a way to like pick the structure up and like go over it, but I
Slide
don't
it
think that
or-
it's that kind of structure.
Yeah. Or cut off a portion of the structure and move it to the other side. Yeah. Okay.
I'd probably
It
be
does-
okay if they did privacy fencing along that side.
It says in 157-474 that privacy fencing could be one of the mitigating factors.
For the setback.
For, with a reduced setback, privacy fencing. It says, and limitation on windows and doors adjacent to abutting property. That is though the road. Is that the setback? That's the one that we're talking about, the one.
The other
So
side.
you're talking about the road and the school. And so I think, and that's why this is, if it was not how it is facing, I would just be against it. But it says privacy fencing can be one of the mitigating factors on there.
Yeah.
And reduced parking.
Would you guys approve for the privacy fencing to be, because where we have our house backyard to where the horse part is, we've put like it's not a tarp, can't remember what it's called, but it's like where we've attached it to the fence and you can't see through it. Have you seen like the wire? It's not the slacks or anything like
Trampoline
that.
type material, right?
What is it? It's not a tarp, but
The
it's
canvas?
canvas, kind of like canvas, but it's the one that you tie with zip ties kind of a thing. And so we've done that from our backyard to where our horse is, and we could do that there. I mean, I could order that
I think you'd
tomorrow
have
and
to
have
work
that up
with-
tomorrow.
I think you'd have to work with staff on that. I think that
Mhm.
would probably not be enough to mitigate but again, with the offset intersection, you'd have to work with them to see where that privacy fencing needs to go to. It may not need to go all the way to the corner because of this. being able to
Psycho angle.
see.
Yeah, the line of sight would probably
Thank
be
you,
a
line of
problem
sight,
with
I
that.
couldn't- What it was
But-
called.
And
Yeah.
the fence that's there currently doesn't go all the way out to the street. Like you can still, there's enough walking path.
Right.
And then there's that. So as long as if you guys want it up to that, there's still enough room to where
Sure.
you can see and walk right there where people are walking all the time.
Again, that would just be up to.
Yeah, back
that's
to
gonna be
staff.
something to work
Yeah.
out with.
So
staff.
does the privacy fence only need to go the length of the structure, or does it need to go along their entire property line?
I would probably recommend, just based on how the intersection is offset, that it would, you come up even with the side of the structure. I mean, you could probably maybe go a little bit further than that, but I would talk to the city engineer to confirm what that site triangle is for that intersection. There's some
Okay.
general guidelines for how that is placed, and
Okay.
the offsetness kind of increases some of those site triangle distances, but just looking at it through Google, that you can see if the privacy fence only went to where the structure, even with the structure, you would likely still have a good view of the intersection.
Yeah. And then, another thing is you could reconsider the second floor and whether that space is really needed, because that would put you back in with compliance if you did not use the second floor.
That's where the
But
bedrooms
that's where the
are,
bedrooms
right?
are. Yeah. Okay.
How bad
So
do
maybe
they
not,
need
but
a living?
for your purposes, maybe not. But just small things to consider. I guess they're not really that small, but big, things to consider that throw it out of compliance that could bring it back into compliance, but anyways, I can make a motion.
Okay.
Okay, I'll make a motion to table, item number 8, the consideration of a conditional use permit for 4086 West, 4450 South, parcel 0825400012. The application for an accessory dwelling unit that is oversized and with reduced setbacks for the applicant, Jeanette Aparicio.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, the motion carries.
You'll work with.
You'll work with them and
Don't work
they'll
on it.
get you all taken care of, I hope.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 9, workshop update to the R3 zoning ordinance.
I thought you were at 11.
Yeah, I wish.
I tried.
We're at the 2-hour mark, Stephen. Did you know that? In case you didn't know.
Yeah. Sorry, did you say item number
11.
11? I was like, what item are we on?
11.
We're at 11, Steve.
As long as it's a short number 8, we can go to 8.
Or number 9.
9. You want to skip?
Yeah,
number
I
10?
can
Yeah,
make
let's do
these.
number 9.
I can make these fairly quick. Well, relatively.
Right. she's got a good point.
Comparison to
You
who
can tell Amy works with you quite a bit.
kick him.
Yeah, well, just a quick
Looks like guilty as charged.
sidetrack. There was a
get
council meeting a few months ago that I didn't have a presentation, but I was there and got done early. And on my way home, I called my wife to let her know. And she's like, wow, that was quick. I was like, yeah. I'm like, I didn't have to talk at all. She's like, well, that's why it was quick. So let's talk about the R3 ordinance, and I'll kind of walk you through some of the ideas that I had as I put it together. And then I have a few kind of broader questions to kind of narrow it down, and kind of wanted your general feedback on the direction it was heading. This is still draft form. My plan is after tonight to also consult with our long-range planning contractor to for some of their recommendations on design or their landscape architects. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump right into this. So the first big change, so I kind of mentioned this last time at our last meeting that I wanted to make some changes to the R3 zone because with the update to the general plan, the densities that the R3 zone references will likely go away. And I think it's better practice just generally to not have the general plan map dictate densities within an established zoning ordinance. It's better to have just the zoning ordinance dictate that. And so the first thing that we did with this is I broke it out into the different densities that are established on the general plan map, essentially RM5, RM8, RM12, and RM24. For reference, I believe the only two that are currently in use are the RM12 and RM24 designations. However, the general plan map has all those listed. So that was the first one. And I added a table. This was on page 75 in the packet that dictates what that means. So if we put density per gross acre. So RM5 is 5 units, RM8 is 8 units, RM12, 12 units, and RM24 is 24 units. Then we also added a table for if they choose to do minimum lot sizes, what that looks like for single family homes and twin homes. And then also maximum building heights for each of those zones. So 35, 35, 35, and 45, which actually correlates with the existing. Essentially, you're not allowed to do, you can do 45 feet. Actually, yeah, I think it's 45. Maybe it's 60 feet, actually. Actually, that is shorter than currently the code reads 60 feet for areas designated as 24 units per acre. So that is a reduction in height for that. So that's something that we could consider as well.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Why are we still calling it R3 instead of RM5?
Well, the idea would be to change that. Currently, it's listed as R3. And the idea is we rename it as RM5, RM8, RM12,
Okay,
RM24 zones. So it would be structured very similar to our commercial zones where we have the 3 different zones kind of
Right.
governed in one section, where those are all similar uses. And so the idea would be kind of the same. These would be all similar uses, so we'd have the same set standards for all 4 zone designations within the section.
Okay, well, I was just thinking with the general plan coming up, why not just call them RMs?
Yeah.
Change them.
Just change it.
So is the intention then that there won't be any more R3 appearing on the general
Correct.
plan?
What we would end up doing if we wanted to move forward, when we get to the point that we feel really confident with this, we would propose the change of the zoning standard with the change of the zoning map. And so we'd have to notify the property owners that are currently, we'd have to treat it like a zone change.
Okay.
So the property owners currently within the R3 zone, which actually aren't that, well, there actually is one subdivision that there's a couple hundred units. But
It's really like a non-issue though with them, right?
yeah, you might have some phone calls, but it'd be a lot of letters. So that's the first change. One of the other changes that I did was add a use table that went through kind of the existing uses that are allowed within that zone. I made a few modifications to that use. Essentially, it was all list form, and I put it in a table to kind of match what the C2 or what the commercial zones do. And I didn't make any changes based on that other than maybe clarification on the dwellings. I incorporated how our code defines different dwellings within the zoning itself. Then the next big change, I made a few changes. We have like a height and setback table. I made some minimal changes to that. It probably needs a little bit more based on a few items. But I pretty much kept that the same to keep the setbacks. I know one of the concerns with this is ensuring there's proper setbacks from existing single-family neighborhoods. And that's really what this table's aimed to do. And so I didn't make any changes to that other than a few clarification items. The big set of changes that I did, though, beyond that, starts in 157.084 for the design standards. And that's what's currently on the screen, though. It's kind of small, so I don't know if you can read it. So I try to tackle this with a couple different goals. I think oftentimes one of the reasons multifamily and these type of developments kind of get a bad rap is that a lot of times they're designed poorly. And I think we have a few examples of that in town. I mean, obviously, there's some things you can't design around, like the impact of increasing the density, for instance. But there's a few things that you can do to mitigate it. And there are a few things to enhance a development to make it better for not only those in the surrounding neighborhood, but also those who end up living in that neighborhood. So the design standard increase was that idea to help offset the impacts of the increased density on the surrounding community, to integrate it more with the surrounding community. So it's not just an isolated development. And then also to provide better design standards for those who eventually live in that community. I took most of these off of, I have a few books that talk about best design standards for multifamily projects. And a lot of these came from there, but also several of them come from my own experience and also poaching from other municipalities. So the first one is open space. You can see I have a quote in there. I need to define what that open space is a little bit better. But this section was added to define what open space is and to ensure that at least 20% of the gross area of the project is open. And that would include so that'd include landscaping. It also includes some of the amenities, like I don't want to punish them for adding a basketball or pickleball court, for example, for what that open space is. We also put in some buffering that there should be 10-foot wide buffer, and there's some landscaping standards for what that buffer looks like. We also talk about some natural features. There's also some reduction on that overall under C through C, D, and E. I put in some standards that if you're doing more of a townhome with backyards or duplexes or single family homes, that open space can shrink because then the development, those who live there aren't necessarily relying on that open space for their own recreation or open space needs.
Is there anywhere else in our code that mentions duplexes?
I don't know.
I don't think
But
so.
actually, that's a good point that I can. I don't think duplexes is
Would that be
defined.
twin homes?
Yeah, or
Okay.
two-family dwellings
Probably
probably.
should.
So under C, the next one is amenities. So this is fairly common throughout many cities within the state, that within these developments that you have some sort of scale for when amenities are due and what those amenities look like. So I provided a table under C. And to, I looked at a few different cities and I try and kind of looked at what some recommendations were for how many amenities would be required and what those would look like. And that's what these numbers are essentially from, is that, if you have 0 to 15, typically, normally you don't have, there's no hard or fast rule about this either. But going through that point, like if you build a little, like just a couple townhomes, typically we wouldn't require like a playground or anything like that for them. They still have to meet the open space requirements though. And then once you start getting higher, 16 to 50, you're looking at increasing the amenities generally on a scale one additional amenity for every 50 to 100 units. Once you cap out at 300 units, then we require an amenity for every 50 units over that. Under C, we have amenities may include, but are not limited to, a pool, at least of a certain square feet, health or fitness facilities, playground, community gardens, trail systems. Actually, I should change that to 10 feet wide. That's and dog parks, sports courts, etc. And then all amenities shall be built to commercial standards. I think we have a development in town that has a playground that is the same playground I have in my backyard as their amenity. So just a lifetime facility, which is fine for, for your backyard. But, if you have 100 units, that's not an adequate playground facility. I did actually see in some codes for playgrounds, that's a minimum requirement and like that's your first amenity you have to put in some cities, and they have it's a little bit hard to govern. There's a certain size for that play structure has to be based on number of units. So I can look into that more if that's something that the
I
planning
like the
commission.
commercial wording. I think that makes it different.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I think we have 2 developments that have lifetime playgrounds as their amenities. So yeah, I wanted to avoid that for sure. We also have a few items that, multiple amenities are required, and that shall vary. Duplicates of amenities should be avoided, but could be approved by the planning commission. That open landscape space and amenities shall be centrally located within the development. And all amenities have to be accessed by walking trails or sidewalks for access, and each unit within the development shall be within a quarter mile of any amenity. And so it requires that they're located close to all the units within the development. So there's not any development that is outside of a general walking distance of basic amenity. Then there's a requirement that they have to be under common ownership, or potentially they can be dedicated to the city. I think generally the city has not. We have a few developments that have done that, and those can be fine. But generally speaking, the city has started to shy away from that as a application. So that's something I've kind of reached out to our parks department to talk about that as well. The amenity plans will need to be submitted with preliminary site plans, so we have an idea of what that is. And that's in G, and under H, there talks about a phasing of what that looks like. And so essentially you can't just save your amenities for the very end. You have to phase your amenities, at least proportionally with the development. And then if any amenity is proposed to be designated to the city, that it has to meet our city standards. So the next section that I added was walls, fencing, and buffering, and unit orientation. This all kind of falls under the same item. And I tried to I took some pictures of some different developments in town for what that looks like. Essentially, what the idea is that we have we don't want to necessarily isolate these communities. One of the things that causes communities like this to deteriorate quicker is their own isolation. So a lack of access within to the rest of the community. There's not visual access into it. Their, isolation overall can cause a deterioration in the value. And so the idea is what we'd want to do is that particularly along public streets, that we don't just create a lot of fencing. If you see in the staff report, we have a few developments that I think have done this well, and developments who haven't. And I think it changes how that development interacts. That's in image 3 in the report. You see the first two are two different 3-story apartment buildings and how they interact with the street face, both on UDOT roadways. One's on Hinckley, one's on 4000 South. The next one, I think it's on 25. No, not on 25. I'd have to look. I don't remember. Now it's
3300.
33. Thank you. And you have the two different developments that are side by side, one with the backyards to it and one with front yards. Actually, another really good example of this is in the Fairhaven. Fairgrove. It's the development that's right next to Privedel Park. You have the single family homes. They have some townhome developments in it, and those are oriented towards the street. And then right adjacent to one is, homes that are townhome development that has garages oriented towards the street, and just the walkability, the conflicts with vehicles, and the amount of landscaping along that frontage, I think changes the look and feel. And so the idea is to try to encourage the better facing front of these developments to the roadway and to the public. So that's why those standards are in, or that's why those are my recommendations for the unit orientation. For pedestrian circulation, due to time, I won't go through this in a whole lot of detail unless there's questions. But the idea is that we have a lot of multifamily developments that don't have any pedestrian circulation plans, no sidewalks. And you have, if we have a single family development that has 5 units, we require curb gutter, sidewalk, and pedestrian access. But if we have a multifamily development that has, 50 or more, we have those that don't have any pedestrian connectivity. And so the idea is that we want to ensure that there is pedestrian access throughout the development and that the overall development itself is very walkable. And so there are different standards for what that looks like. They have to provide a pedestrian circulation plan. They have to provide, if there's a public trail system that's within our master plan that's adjacent, they have to provide that. They can provide internal trail systems if they'd like to, that are 10 feet wide. So I did put it down there, but it's conflicts above. And then if they're doing sidewalks, they have to be a minimum of 5 feet wide. We do allow for primitive or unpaved natural trail systems, but they are just part of open space and not necessarily to access. We also require that for the pedestrian circulation plan, they have to show where it is. We also requiring that blocks longer than 660 feet would provide pedestrian access at a minimum of 660 foot intervals linking the blocks. We actually have this in our subdivision code as an option, but for this, I wanted to make it just a requirement. The other item is oftentimes these complexes deal with bike storage issues. And so requiring a minimum bike parking and covered areas, storage areas, as a requirement. And then the last
Question about that.
Yeah.
Sorry. In a multifamily development, which would include townhomes, you have to provide one bicycle parking space for every 2 units?
Yes, so that is something we could, I think I took that, I don't remember, I took this standard. It is one of the design standards, had that as a recommendation. From some of the material I have, that I agree, that seems a little bit low.
I was thinking a little high, but
Yeah, for townhomes that have garages, I don't know.
So we would be able to count a garage as part of it. I have, I talked to a planner who has it similarly, and when they do townhomes, they consider the garage as the covered bike storage.
Okay.
that makes a little more sense to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but if it's like an apartment building, then they either have to provide, sometimes they have, like, I know one that has like a full blown like building separated that has bike storage and racks and repair stands. Like it has a lot of stuff going on and it's really great.
Well,
But I've
good
also
for them.
seen them where they just have a bike rack and it has a shaded cover over it. And both of those would meet what this has in there.
Okay, thank
So for the next item for roadway and connectivity, I included a standard for when driveways provided, they have to be a minimum of 20 feet in length. So we don't have like those weird 10-foot driveways that everybody parks in and blocks the sidewalk.
We currently do.
And then we also limit what the garages and driveways shall not be permitted to have access off right of ways bordering the development's boundaries. So kind of going back to that building orientation. We also allowed for private roadways explicitly allowed in these zones, and that they'd have to meet our code, and that there's a few standards that private roadways and drives shall only be used to access a limited number of units and not used as main travel corridors within the development, and public roadway systems shall be used in areas to provide connectivity between parcels and developments. And then I added that guest parking shall not be allowed as tandem parking space within driveways or garages. Our code is a little bit unclear. In our current parking standard, we require a guest parking space, but it doesn't really say how that's supposed to be. And the question always comes up, well, I'm doing a 2-car garage, the garage itself meets the requirement, and then I have a driveway for guest parking. And the council actually had a workshop with an applicant last week, and where that question came up, and the council's like, nope, we don't consider tandem spacing. And I wanted to make sure that's clear. So those are the main changes. So the questions that I had in the report, and I'm sorry, I know this is not going as fast. Yeah. So I have 3 questions that I would like feedback on. The first one is, do we want to allow commercial uses within these zones? I would not recommend that I don't want to necessarily just copy and paste our mixed use zone and require a mixed use, but like I put a copy or, showed a photo of a development that I worked on when it was a different organization, and they felt like there was going to be need for some, like they wanted, they're on an intersection and they felt like, hey, we can do an ice cream shop and a restaurant. And so, yeah. Yeah, so they added on the photo, the item circled in red is, I think it's a Zeppi's and a taco place. That was incorporated in part of this development. The next question
if you could guarantee those, that would probably be okay.
Yeah, and what we could do is we can be very picky. We have our own use table. If you want to limit it to restaurants, cafes, I don't know, small office spaces, those type of things, we can be very picky. We don't necessarily have to say what's allowed in the C1 or C2 zone. We can create our own use table for this. The next question is the item of live work units. These are typically units that are dual purpose, where it's not like a mixed use. It is a mixed use structure, but not necessarily separate apartment and separate business space. Normally they're incorporated. The photo I have are some in North Logan. I actually know somebody who owns one of these. And they're a therapist and they live upstairs and they run their practice from downstairs. And they liked it so much that they bought another one that they rent out the upstairs to another partner who then operates the space below. And so they're touch and go. I've seen them be really successful. I've also seen places where they implement them and, they fill up the rentals really quick, but the office spaces or, studios that are below them aren't oftentimes are slower to be utilized. And the last question I had was just the role of private roads and drives. Generally speaking, private roads are very common within multifamily developments, and I think there's some good reason that these private drives and access to a limited number of units makes sense for those to be private. The city doesn't necessarily want to plow or pave those. However, that sometimes can lead to a lot of dead end streets or isolated units. We actually just had a pre-application meeting today where somebody's building adjacent to a multifamily project that just has private roads, and their road would stub into one of their private roads. And if that connection point were to be able to, if they could have made that connection point into that private road, then it would make their project much more viable. And so the private roads, even though they can hamper, or even though they're cheaper and we don't have to maintain them, they do cause further isolation and lack of connectivity within areas that these developments are built. So yeah, I guess I'm
The
just
concerns
curious.
I've seen with private roads in some of the neighborhoods we have around here is they're much narrower. Some of them don't even have turnarounds for emergency vehicles. So I would suggest if we're going to have private roads in those type of developments, that they should meet the same standards that we have throughout the rest of the city. We have those in place for safety and travel reasons. And I mean, the neighborhood should be just as safe as the rest of the community to me.
Yeah.
We should be less concerned about the safety of people because they live on a private road.
Right.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And that is an issue in a lot of them. Like you can go down a private road and no way to turn around, or
Yeah.
there's no pedestrian access, no sidewalks, no anything, and they're very narrow.
Do and drive down with a trailer on the back of your truck. Oh,
Yeah, like, how am I supposed to get out of this?
yeah. Not that I've ever done that.
Yeah, doesn't sound like it.
I like the idea of the live workspaces. It's actually a concept that we're looking at the property that I manage and work at. The only thing is, like, there need to be adequate parking and stuff like that for it.
Yeah. Typically what I've seen is that they're still required to do the off-street parking requirements, but you just separate it for the office space. You're required whatever the standard is for that office space, and then just the parking for the residential. And then just in addition to that, normally they're not tandem, or normally they don't count, because the idea is that the resident doesn't have to go anywhere. So they need that parking all day at the same time as business hours. So you need to do both.
Yeah.
And is it required that it's the same person that has the business that lives up there, like
Yeah.
as one total unit?
So we can do that. Or, I mean, I think the traditional live work units are generally the people who live in it are also the ones operating the studio, and normally they're connected in some way. But you can just make a pure mixed use structure where you could potentially rent in one of those units, but not have access to the office space. So at that point, I normally wouldn't consider that a live work unit. We'd consider that more as a mixed use structure.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I'm just not too sure. The photograph at
Yeah, that
least
photo
looks like
is-
apartments. And
Yeah, that's not a very,
They pretty much
Sweet.
can be indistinguishable from apartments.
Yeah.
The idea is you kind of choose how to use them inside. I don't
Yeah.
know. There might be more requirements, like, I don't think we require this necessarily, but like an inspection of your business
Yeah, it's essentially is because sometimes people don't even utilize them for business. Like,
Yeah.
I know one that when the person moved in, they didn't open up a business. They just used it as like an art studio, for instance. They didn't have any customers. They just used it as their own space. But it was built to commercial standards so that if somebody wanted to use it as a business, they could.
Yeah, I think the thing for me in the visual here is that it looks like it's an apartment deck in the front versus something a little more decorative, but
It just looks older too, but
we're gonna catch it from anybody anyway. It's not gonna matter.
There is some live work, I don't know, maybe it's just, if you are on 1900 heading towards Clearfield, there's a couple of apartment buildings that actually look really nice, would have businesses on the bottom, places to eat or whatever, and then apartments on the top. I think that looks really nice. I don't know if the people own them and live on top or not. I'm not positive, but
Yeah, I think I know. I've seen those buildings. I'm not sure if those are just a mixed use structure
I'm
or if
not
they
either.
live work. I can
they are
see
mixed
though.
use.
but they look nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's some in Farmington too.
Yeah.
Yes, there is. Yep.
So once again, like I can maybe take a stab at it, see if we can incorporate it, and the code is still in draft form, very much so. And
And
so,
to your third point, I think the commercial idea is a good, like commercial in lieu of having an amenity. I think that it's probably fine. I guess I'm trying to think of what people, like what a smart developer would put in would be okay. But if you had someone that didn't care that came in and said, we're gonna put a Jiffy Lube or an auto shop or, whatever it was.
yeah.
I guess we could have a approved uses table or something.
Yeah, what I would recommend is that I would essentially start with our C1 zoning, which is our most restrictive commercial uses. Essentially just allows very neighborhood commercial type uses, and then add that into the use table. I would go through and cherry pick what ones I thought were most compatible and present that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay.
So we got on the same. You still need direction on the private roads? Is that where
I guess
we're
if
at?
there's are any thoughts, I think generally speaking, it seems like there might be allowed, but we should ensure that it meets general public road type standards.
So can I ask a question on that? Because I'm not quite 100% sure. So when you have, let's say, apartment building with, 300 apartments, whatever, that road in the apartment building, are those considered private roads?
It depends
Okay.
how they're classified. Typically, like there's like private drives essentially that are just used to access parking areas. So if you have a parking lot and there's aisles that you access it, we wouldn't normally consider that a private roadway, but the connectivity between the different parking aisles or units or whatever else, that's typically considered a private, that would normally consider the roadway. And so I would go through and make an attempt to define what those are, because obviously for like an apartment building, the parking lot will have aisles that people will drive in, and those would be of a different standard than the connector.
So would a private road be like that when we had the winery guy in with the road that was Bell? Was that Bell's was a private road, Bell Plumbing?
Yeah, that was,
And so
it was that was more of a private drive. That
Yeah.
wasn't really a roadway. And so what they were wanting to do is secure an easement to utilize that drive.
Okay.
But the development that's right behind that, I forgot the name of it, but does that have public and private? Is that a mix of public and private roads, or is that all public, or are those all private?
Yeah, so the development, so you go behind that, there's the townhomes that are kind of right behind it. Those are all private drives that go into it. But the whole Riverwalk development itself, Amy shudders just at the very
I agree with you,
mention.
Amy.
South, 1700 South, those are city dedicated.
Yep, we have a system in there that is dedicated, but most of the individual developments themselves are controlled with private drives and access. So like the apartment structure that's there, there's all that parking. Essentially, the drives are accessing the parking, which is then adjacent to the buildings.
Yeah. Go a fire truck down there.
That's a problem.
We have
Yeah.
a hard time trying to bug around.
Yeah,
That's part of the huge problem with River Oak.
yeah. I mean, Riverwalk has that issue, not only within the developments themselves, but also on the roadway circulation. Okay, thanks. So I guess kind of my direction, what I'll plan on doing is try to define what each of those are and when we would want one or the other. That's, I can look into that. That's not a problem. Okay, is there any other questions? I guess generally speaking, how does the planning commission feel about the direction the ordinance is heading? Do you feel like this is heading generally in the right direction, or am I?
I think it gives a lot of information. It's helpful to see all of the like charts and stuff so that you could look at it quickly and kind of know what we're supposed to work.
I like that it's really defining or clarifying
Yes.
things that have been more indistinguishable sometimes.
Sounds good.
I like the direction.
Mhm.
Thank
A
you.
lot of work.
Yes, it
Yeah.
is.
A lot of work.
Well, we'll continue heading down the same path and I'll plan on bringing it
Okay.
back next time. Well, we'll see. Like I said, I'm gonna have Landmark review it too, and whether or not they'll had that review done
By then.
before the next meeting. So it may be in another month before we see it.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody want to make a motion on item 10?
Table it.
I thought, but I can't make a motion.
Yeah.
I like how he thinks.
Stephen, would you be okay if we tabled item 10 or do you want to go?
Or is there a rush on this?
There's no rush,
Okay.
and so we're just kind of working at our own
Yeah.
pace.
I didn't think there was a time.
Then
I had to
I
make sure.
Make a motion to table item 10.
I'll second the motion.
There you go. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? George, you're not opposed? What's the matter with you?
Just make a motion to table item, I'm just kidding. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All right. All in favor?
I.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Come on, George, I'm counting on you.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Stephen.
Motion
No,